Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Cyber Witch, your online resource for spiritual development. Today, we are having another of our weekly live streams called Interdimensional Discussions. Hello to everyone in the chat.
Hello, hello.
And just like Wolf Bright is saying, an exceptionally fascinating topic today.
Pretty much so.
Psionics, and Vermilion is going to teach us about psionics today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some things coming up in the public eye too, and I don't have any fancy little screens to switch to today or anything like that, but you guys can research all that's kind of coming up. And currently there's a lot of whistleblowers coming out about the UAP stuff and how they're interfacing with them with psionic abilities and how they're able to induce like hyper focused states of consciousness to be able to interface with these crafts. And some of these whistleblowers are talking about how they felt during it and how they felt like there was this really strong presence like pulling them, and it was like this huge mystical experience for them. And we're going to kind of talk about the ability of psionics, or the ability of psychic abilities and technology kind of interfacing, because it's a real thing. And now that people are talking about it more open in the public, and simple Google search or go on X or even Facebook or any social media, you're going to be able to find something on it.
This is life and world changing information. The more people learn about the reality of this, I know a bit about it, but you definitely know quite a lot about it. And so for people that have never heard of the term psionics before, can you please break it down?
It's basically, how can we create technology that interfaces with our, not only biology, our DNA makeup, if you will, but also our mental and psychic powers. So we're talking about this goes past like Neuralink, where you could even probably do telepathy with Neuralink, the technology that has, but that's putting a chip in. I'm saying like a ship, or these UAPs or the UFOs, or these other types of meditation devices that actually help project the consciousness and amplify it. And there's been many, we can call them black budget programs if you want, but there's been many black budget programs that have been utilizing psionics and psychic spiritual warfare for a very long time. And there's stories of like reverse engineered chairs and all this kind of stuff that interfaces with your psychic development and your psychic field, that allows you to project a lot quicker and connect to specific things. And I find it funny because in the mainstream world, we have things that are being put out now called the Stargate Project, with all the weird vaccines for cancer and all that kind of stuff, and AI and all this stuff with the Stargate Project. But it's funny because the Stargate Project was actually a remote viewing type thing. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on with it, and it's all about this: how are we going to be spiritually changing through the next few years? Like especially what you're talking about on your videos every week, is that like there's a huge change going on.
Right. There's so much technology that people have scale that we're going to get to have access to and learn about. And this kind of stuff is really going to take humanity to great levels.
Yeah.
It's really going to be so exciting. Just think about like even like when we're millennials, so we grew up before we had that time before even the internet was really everywhere. So like we can just think about how big of a deal the internet is and how much that changed the world. Think about all the other types of technology that could cause incredible change that just within our own lifetime. It's so exciting. It's really a very blessed and exciting time to be alive.
It is. Yeah. It is. It might seem like chaos sometimes on the outside of it all. But what's going to be released in the next few years is going to be exponentially groundbreaking, and it's going to be met with flack and conspiracy theories, and I'm all for conspiracy theories, but there is going to be a dramatic change, and we're seeing this happen one way or the other, you know. And I'll say right now, this whole Project Stargate program is more of um, a psyop in itself, or a trigger for people to pay attention to. So it's not so much that this plan is going to go through. It's more of a let's throw some trigger words out. So the Project Stargate was a real thing, and it was connected to a lot of people that, whether they were willingly or unwillingly part of this program.
Was that the one with the like birthing the entities into the world?
No, that was
That's a
like
different one.
the Stargate was all like remote viewing, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and that's
Okay.
like what led to like a lot of like the synthetic telepathy work. And all that.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that involved, and we have this whole UAP thing happening at the same time. And what was it? The New Jersey mayor just said that these things form from orbs of light, and when they come close to you, they just so happen to start taking on the appearance of a drone or some kind of winged object. And I find that quite funny, because if we're working with these forms of technology, they can really holographically appear whatever which way they want. So all part of this is part of the psionics. What would you call, like you know, the psionics, psion, if you will, because it goes very, very deep. And you know, imagine a computer that eventually we won't need a mouse or a keyboard or anything that's really interfacing with us. It's just interfacing with our mind, and it's typing words, and it's doing whatever, because it's able to read the electromagnetic patterns.
So the idea is like you could pilot a craft with your psychic abilities,
100%.
For example. When I think about this kind of stuff, what it always reminds me of, and I think I was talking to you about this last night, like if anyone else is an anime nerd like I am, if you've seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, it's like that, except you don't have to go into the mech itself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can pilot
cool.
it remotely, like you would a drone. Like if you have ever flown a drone, and I've personally flown a drone, not like the military crazy ones, but like you have a control and you're connected to it and you're moving it around. Now imagine if it was be able to psychically pick up on your pattern, where really what you're doing is just visualizing it. And you know, when I say that, it takes a special person to be able to do that, you know, because in most cases, a lot of people can't meditate for more than, you know, 20-30 seconds at a time without their mind wavering, you know. And this is why I teach the classes that I teach, and even you do the work that you do, is because it's like this focused state of mental control is what's really important. And the people in these projects are very good at hyperfixating. They're really good remote viewers, and they're high level psychics that can interface with this type of technology and be able to hold it within their frequency to make this thing do what it needs to do for long periods of time.
That's so cool. I would love to be able to do stuff like that, but then I wouldn't be able to talk to you guys at all. So you have to, it's like you win some, you lose some, right?
I've been controlling this craft for the past 15 hours. You know, and that's really what it goes down to, you know, and everybody can connect to these things. And this is what I've been trying to prove for years is, you know, there is no crazy magical thing to it. Like you have to have a really good intention, and you have to go out there and you have to call upon them almost like you're calling a spirit, but you have to do it in a very loving, understanding way for something to kind of manifest like that. And it is quite spectacular. But we if we don't have a full physical manifestation, are we kind of playing with fire? And I would say sometimes, but if you're in a very high vibration and loving with good intent, typically they're going to match that. You know, from my personal experience of those kind of things happening in my life.
When you talk about vibration, which is a common set of words that we utilize on this channel, what do you mean like by that for people who are just tuning in and don't know what you're talking about when you talk about like holding yourself to it and keeping yourself at a certain vibrational frequency?
It goes really to your emotions. So like if you're in a state of fear or resentment or anger, you know, these lower bandwidths of emotional frequency, you're going to be vibrating at that. So when you're connecting to these things, pay attention to that, and it's kind of weird to say everybody just go outside and start calling these things, but it'd be quite interesting to see people's like, wow, something really did appear up there, because it I've had it personally happen doing those kind of things, and now they're putting it out in the public, being like, hey, if you have psychic abilities, there might be a chance that you can connect to these things. Then it's a slow trickle. They have to do it. They have to do it in slow trickle. Otherwise, it'd be too shocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah.
But so back to the frequency thing. You got to be in a high frequency of good emotions, love, compassion, acceptance, not thinking violently. Those are the ones that you're going to get that are not very physical per se. It's going to be more on a higher spiritual level, for sure. Yeah. But it works through psionics. If we're looking at their crafts, they're working on a high level of existence where their crafts are interfacing with them. So you kind of have to meet halfway somewhere where these things can start coming into actual real view. And I'm not saying everything in the sky is this, but it is very possible. And it is psionic related. Their technology reacts via the psychic projection and psychic senses. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And anybody that's in these projects that would even come out or have come out will tell you the same thing. That matters greatly on your psychic function, on how you can connect to those things. And that's why I'm always like, hey, psychic development, develop your psychic centers, develop this. That's why you're always talking about psychic development. That's why we talk about these things, because if you can hold a simple image, if we told you to hold this ruler in your head for 45 minutes clear as day, could you do it?
Right.
That now, how does that fit into psychic senses? It does, to the point of mind control, and it's not something else controlling your mind. It's you being able to hyperfixate and control your own mind on one thing. And that's what meditation is. It's not about just breathing. It's about how do we become better at utilizing our functions and what we are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a vast topic, and I know there's a lot more you can talk about that you're going to teach us today. If you're confused about what's going on in chat, people are saying lyrics to my old rap songs. And so that's what that is. And I'm so glad you guys remember that. That was a really fun time. You also have a hip hop past. So it's kind of fun that we both have that, but now we get to talk about psionics and stuff like that. And, so that's awesome that you're loving that. Yeah, that was like a fun time. It's good to experiment with music and try different things, and I really did enjoy doing that. And now I'm doing other stuff with the days, which is teaching you guys about these revolutionary things in our spiritual development of the world, and that's really taken over my life. So that's really fun. That's really fun that people remember the lyrics to that. That's so cool.
Reaver here says, if you don't control your mind, somebody else will. 100%. Yeah.
Exactly, Reaver. That is so true. If you don't control your mind, somebody else will.
Now, if you can control your mind to such a high degree, that means you could exert your will of psychic influence upon something else for that long. So it goes into the occult and magical work of meditation and adherence to the energy field when you're doing those things. So this is how we are eventually in the future, whether that be tomorrow or years from now, we are going to be psychically interfacing with our everyday life to some degree. And, it's going to be interesting.
Supernatural Entertainment has asked, what are your thoughts on demonic possession?
Let me see this. Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, it can happen. It definitely can happen.
One of the cats really wants to be in the room. Should I just let him in?
We probably should.
Just let him in? All right.
Demonic possession is very real. I've, been around it at one point. It's not too exciting. But it's, there's also other things that could seem like demonic possession, so what is
so many things.
even synthetic telepathy.
Like we could
and
call it
ELF.
demonic
Yeah,
because of the results of what it does, right? Like, but when you're being possessed by something, there's a lot of different ways that it manifests, but typically it will be like you don't remember what's actually happening to you while it's happening.
Yeah,
like you don't have a memory of it.
Yeah, but that your consciousness is not there, at all. So we can even look at those stories of like walk-ins and like wanderers and like star seeds and all that kind of stuff as sometimes a form of possession, because if somebody goes, oh no, I don't remember any at the age of 45 I had this crazy experience and now I just don't remember anything, but I am this new thing. Like we can even look at that as almost like demonic possession, because that something else took over the vessel, if you will, but yeah, it's all about psychic ability when it comes to those psionic things. So I got a beautiful cat.
No, he's so beautiful. Wolfbright is asking, in demonic possession, where exactly does our consciousness go? I wonder. So that's a really great question. So like your soul is not here. Your soul is here. It manifests here, but it exists in a place that is like pure and perfect. That's not here.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, but the thing is, like in demonic possession, it could be a thing where you are, in a sense, replacing the field that energy that was once in that vessel before that was taken over is now on the mirror side of whatever that is.
Yeah.
So if somebody's shadow formation, or even in like the Islamic world, they call it qareen, or is like the shadow jinn or the demon that is incarnated with you, possesses you, you become in their world and they become in this world, and you do not have any memory of it because you're no longer located within this conscious reality. So it highly depends, I would say. It depends on the entity taking over.
And Billie Jean is asking, is there just being hijacked? Yeah, absolutely, by so many different kinds of things. And this happens to people all the time. So technologies can do this. People can willingly fall into that. They can make situations happen. Let's give an example of a situation that someone could create where they would be getting hijacked. Like what the person was saying earlier about like, if you don't control your mind, then it's going to get controlled. So someone that's just letting whatever emotion they start feeling, make them feel like they're triggered by that constantly.
That's the big word there, is triggered. If you read something, see something, hear something, and it makes you feel an emotional way, you've been triggered. It doesn't matter if it's made you feel happy, if it made you feel angry, if it made you feel sad, if it made you feel indifferent. You are triggered some way, shape, or form in it. But especially when it comes to magical work, if you're just somebody that is going to go into a ritual and call upon whatever and be like, come on, let's do whatever, you have a very much higher chance of being hijacked, because whatever you want is really being allowed in, and that's pretty dangerous. It's good to be protected. If you're not doing the preliminaries of protecting and making sure that your mind is right and your emotions are right and doing your energetic work, you're more apt to be kind of hijacked. And this could be very small, even throughout the day. It doesn't mean that you have to be fully hijacked. You could have done something horrible to somebody at a store and not really realized why you did it. You could have just been a complete asshole to somebody. You're like, that was so out of character. Like, what happened? It's because your radio dial picked up on a vibration that you let it in.
Yeah, exactly. And like, especially if you're a spiritual person and you're just letting yourself be open to whatever is going to come in. I lived with someone who was terribly taken over by just allowing whatever would come through to take over his body. This was a really long time ago, and it was absolutely wild seeing the stuff that those things would make this guy do, like flipping up through the air, eyes glowing like fire, just things that like you wouldn't want to have happen to you, because it really hurt him a lot, like going through all of that. And Ty Boy is asking, is this Satan's realm?
Mm,
This,
yeah, I mean,
there is always an eternal battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil, and that's what creates our universe. But the thing is that we live in a world that is founded on illusions, and the things that people think are good are often evil, and the things people think are evil in that kind of thinking are often the good things. And
right.
what you need to see is like not what people are saying, but what are people actually doing.
Yeah, and look at it as like a mirror. Like if you can see it in religions, they're telling you one thing but doing the other, and it's like, wait a minute, like there's a mirroring aspect to it, you know. So it can be, yeah. Wolf right here says, "Wolf without safeguards, anything can happen." 100%. And that doesn't even mean like you have to put up a circle around you every day and do these things. Yes, do your mental work and all that, but if you are typically, not in the position for those things to happen to you, you have a pretty safe mind pattern.
Yeah, I like what the primary element is saying, that demons can be inconsistent. Demons, a lot of them, unless they're the ones that are like actually aliens, gods in other worlds, as it were, if we're looking at it in that sense. But a lot of them are contracted to only fulfill particular functions. So it's not like going to demons is always going to make your desires happen, because they'll only do a certain function.
Yeah, I'm from the thought process of like there's nothing between you and source or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you can't have your cohorts or your patron, your patrons and pretty much like the people that you rub shoulders with or the spirits that you rub shoulders with. But you only can make it work if you're living to the high degree as well. You know what I mean? Like you can't walk amongst the gods unless you're vibrating to them. That doesn't mean that you can't accept them as your friends, but in the end, there is nothing between you and the source, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be Abrahamic. It doesn't have to be religious. Like whatever that source of all creation is, there is really nothing between you and it.
Yeah, and we like to look at stuff beyond the labels of religion, because people get really for lack of a better word, triggered by different religions and things like that. So what I like to look at it is from my perspective, just as an overall spiritual person, and look at like what is literally actually helping and healing, and what is literally like fucked up and corrupted, and looking at it in that way without putting on these labels. Because just like in Jane Roberts' The Seth material, what I recall like so much was Seth saying, who's like this alien who communicates to her, that one of the biggest problems with humans is they're always putting things in these categories to define it and labeling things. And then we can find something that's actually pure and good, but everyone has said this was something evil, but then what they're doing is actually fucked up and evil. So it's like you have to look at what people are actually doing, and there's good and evil people in all things around the world. So like you can't just pick one thing and say that's good and pick it what it's evil. You have to see what the people are literally doing, because all those labels don't matter. What matters is the energy of what people are producing. So that's why I like on this channel to call it like the source, like I call it like the cosmic mind, the like, or what people might call like God. I call it the cosmic mind, because it is literally like the living universe that interacts with us, that we experience through spiritual development. Yeah,
no, 100%.
Yeah.
And Gerson here to ask if a person, if I may ask, what is spirituality and what makes one spiritual? And it's a good thing that you just said that. To me personally, makes somebody spiritual is really, it's outside of religion, it's outside of dogma. There's some energy source giving this energy to something, and as long as we know that and we understand how energy works, and we're becoming better people, both emotionally and mentally, and the deeds that we do and the things that we do, we become just a better energy overall. So it doesn't mean that you have to develop crazy psychic functions to be spiritual,
Mhm.
so I don't really look at it that way. On the topic of psychics and psionic abilities, we all are psychic to some degree, and sometimes just people are more than others because they've either been through the process of developing it, or they're just naturally developed. It's usually caused by like previous incarnations. But that doesn't make anybody better than another, because they all can do it, and eventually we're all going to be able to connect to these things and have all these really amazing technologies that's going to connect to our energetic body. And you're not going to know your physical body anymore. You're going to know your energetic bodies. And no longer do we know the liver as a liver, but we know the liver also has this energetic imprint and what's going on with it.
That's really revolutionary.
Chinese medicine.
Right.
I mean, they've all pinpointed this for years, but now because we have a massive technological advancements, which I would pinpoint people to kind of research, like where those technological advancements came from, and I can tell you they weren't all human, and how this relates to the development of our new world, or one side, you could say, of that whole new world order. Because one way or the other, there's a one world thing coming, and we can call it the new world order, we can call it whatever we want, but which vibration is going to happen? So all this technology is going to come out, but it's going to be good, but there's also can be some bad things about it.
Yeah, and that all ties back into what you're talking about with vibration. And this is a huge part of it, is taking control over your own personal vibration, despite the frequencies and energies that are being projected at you from other people or the world, and allowing yourself to train in that atmosphere so those things don't bother you. It's very difficult to do, but this is the same kind of concepts that we talk about in like yogic work, the training of the mind, developing of the psychic abilities, approaching reality and life as deeper levels than just like its face value,
Yeah.
but the energetic value of that exchange is really important. And what you are creating from that, like, if you're going into a bunch of like really dark negative delusions, like I love edgy stuff so much, like I fucking love it, but I have to make sure that my mind isn't like going down some sort of like doom spiral. Yeah, like you got to not do that, because you have power there. And it ultimately comes back to like, are you happy? Do you feel happy day to day?
Correct.
And if you don't, then you need to change something about your spiritual practice.
100%.
Yeah. So what else are we allowed to talk about when it comes to psionics?
I mean, what's wonderful is the time period we're coming in, is there's a lot that can be talked about, because there's a lot of things that have been put into play that allows people to say whatever they kind of want, and tell the stories how they kind of want. So it's a really good thing. You can pretty much say most of anything. And these psionic programs have been around for a long time. Like we're talking, like this is not new technology by any means. This is actually really old technology that's been around for eons, and it's found within old scripts within the Sanskrit Vedas. It's found with old script and religious texts. Everything that we are pretty much told, it's some kind of allegorical mask that they put over these things, and it has always been part of it. Even in the Sanskrit, they call them the Vimanas, and there were these ships that you could connect to that had all this type of technology to them that could go different distances, and some could cloak themselves and do all these miraculous things.
And we'll definitely be talking more about that.
Yeah, we will be. And these are real things in the old, one of the oldest scriptures known to man outside of the Sumerians. And even if you start studying the Sumerians, you're like, oh, they're talking about some off-worlder technologies and weird stuff, so it's nothing new. It's just, it's been hidden and kept from everybody, and it's been put into black budgets, and this is where everybody's money's been going to. We've been funding this not only through taxpayers and all that kind of stuff, but we've been funding this through other projects and other wars and all this stuff that the governments have been funding. And I don't even just mean America, I mean the world. has been funding. And this goes from, various larger arenas, even like the United Nations and larger corporations that have these bigger stakes at hands with the big populace. And sometimes you'll have these factions fighting inside of them to be able to control and sway these worlds. So we have to think big scale when it comes to these kind of technologies, and the secrecy levels and the secrecy dams, so to speak, are going to break, and the flood is going to happen. The proverbial flood of knowledge will happen, and that's what comes from that whole light of Lucifer. It is that the truth, the shining of the reality and the truth of light and knowledge comes to birth.
And obviously, for people, that's going to be really weird because most people don't want to believe that stuff is possible.
And they don't want to be shown absolutely atrocious things, and everybody's going to have to look at it, no matter how it makes you feel.
Right, because that's what's been happening in the world.
It does not matter how you feel about it. It doesn't matter if it's going to hurt you emotionally or mentally. You're going to be forced to look at it on such a mind-numbing scale. And luckily enough, when people have fractures in the brain, they just become very psychic, actually. So there's a positive outlook to when even that happens to people, is that, they just fractured themselves into being very psychic. That's good.
I actually wrote about that in a book I had written a long time ago that was about Satan.
Oh.
Yeah. About like the spirit, like the trauma causing spiritual psychosis that develops your psychic abilities further.
And it's because it compartmentalizes the mind. So like if you look at the mind as one thing, and then also we go through trauma, and also there's like a little box here, and then another box, and they become kind of like personality structures, if you will. But since it's part of consciousness, you start learning how it sways and energy moves, and sometimes people get lost in it though. The primary element says we all have strength in our auras. We just need to strengthen. Correct. And we got to remember, we as a soul, you are the highest level of energy. It's just what are you doing to be able to anchor the energy? Are you meditating? Are you doing the meditation every day? Then you're not balancing and stopping the hovering of your body. And we don't tell people to do these things because it's a fad and it's cool to do and you should meditate. No, this is what happens. If you're not meditating every day, you are not assisting in your energetic body stopping to hover. You're not, like, it's crazy how people don't have so many people don't have the ability to just sit in quiet silence with themselves. You don't have to worry about like trying to kick every thought out of your mind constantly and freak out about that, or your ability to sit still. Like people just have this super deep aversion or feel like they just can't just sit with themselves in quiet silence. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you move a little or if thoughts come in your head. They come and go as clouds in the sky, but people just don't want to do that and just feel like they can't. Or they have like a deep aversion to pain or a deep aversion to their own mind. And I think that's what it is. It's like they're afraid of being alone with their own mind, and you'll constantly need something to like stimulate them and distract them. And we can understand that. Yeah, of course, I've definitely been there. Some people don't want to sit with their emotions and their trauma. But I have so much empathy for that, but I understand. But I also studied like a lot of different important literature, and there's such a prevalence of this like Freudian based psychology on how people interpret trauma, and how people have just come to some conclusion that trauma must create who we are in our life, and we're imprisoned by it in this way. And that's not all the philosophical schools of thought about it. There's all kinds of others. Like I love Adler's work where he talks about how traumatic things can happen to you, but you are actually in charge of if it's going to make you who you are or not. Like you are in full control of that. And it's just so interesting how these like certain particular philosophers have their philosophies become just part of like how the modern world just has decided things are. And it's also because people do not study psychology and as much, or like philosophy as they did before. So people don't know, oh, this train of thought is actually coming from a particular philosopher. And it's not like set in stone of this is just how it is with trauma. This is actually a particular philosopher's interpretation of what trauma does.
it's not an overall like fact,
Right.
because we actually can heal ourselves if we want to, and
The mind's
it's hard,
crazy
of course.
powerful,
Yeah.
but it's not easy, you know. And I was, you know, when I was doing a class the other day, I even said, I was like, this is not easy. I never said this is easy, you know, because it's not. And it's you know, I urge people to try to at least meditate for like 5 minutes a day, and be able to focus on one thing, even if it's a thought that keeps coming into your head, to be like, oh my God, I got to do the dishes, or I gotta do my laundry, or I got to stop the dog from barking. You know,
Yeah.
these little thoughts that come in, hinge on that one thought and think about that one thing for 5 minutes and see if you can do it without your mind swaying. You
Yeah.
know, if you can do that for 5 minutes, you did pretty dang well without it swaying a single bit. I'm not saying like, oh, I was thinking about it, but then I thought about my cat. No, I'm saying you're only hyper fixated on that one thought. And this is exactly how these psionic programs work, and how we interface with technology currently in these projects, and also in the future, which is going to be much more in the public open, you know. And people should not fear AI integrating with a lot of things. People should fear who is funding the AI, and who's developing the AI on a larger scale. And I suggest people look into it, because it's not gonna come through to fruition on that side, but we are going to have some technologies that start interfacing on a very strong energetic scale, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I hope that casting cauldrons feels better. Get well soon.
Hey, making good use of that time though.
Yeah.
You know, collecting a plasma ball on my candle flame. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Work on psionics while you're sick. It actually, what's weird, it does kind of help, because you're kind of out of body when you're sick, you know, so you're not like all there. You're kind of swaying anyway. So if you can channel that, it's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. Nocturnia Obscura says, just tuned in, but I love the topic. We are not just what happened to us, we are what we do with it. In my opinion, we should not just accept what they say, we create our own luck, fate, life. Yeah.
Agreed.
That's the point of being alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Finding that.
Yeah. You know, and it's those things that we allow to take our energy. You know, we have to be able to progress as a nation, to be able to progress as psychics and just people in general. You have to take back your energy, and we've given our energy to so many different things, not only celebrities, politicians, and all that kind of stuff, but we've also given energy to the traumas and the other people that may have affected us, or made us believe, or programmed us with ideologies about ourselves, you know. And everything since your birth you've been programmed with. And if we can deprogram the mind, the more bullshit's out of it, which allows you to focus better, which allows you to be able to control your own mind, which allows you to become a better occultist or magician, or operator within the energetic perspective. And it's not so much about doing a ritual every day, or giving your energy to something. It's about gaining control over it, you know. And it's a big part of the whole, I feel, you know. Is he suckling on your hand?
He's just resting his nose on my wrist and letting me massage his
cute.
toe beans with my hand. I know it feels cold on my wrist. Sure. I wish you guys could see this.
This is very adorable.
Yeah, the cat's being really cute.
Yeah,
okay.
Super cute. I just looked down. I'm like, oh, that's really adorable.
So, like, what I don't want is for people to watch this video and be all worried that like psionics are attacking them all the time. But like, what if people feel like they are or something? Like, what would you say about that?
It goes back to the principles. Get your mind right. Protection. We've talked a lot about the violet bubble, or the violet, you know, energy field around you. If you sit in meditation for 5 minutes, like I said earlier, visualizing this violet bubble around you, your mind's going to know no different between something that's real or something that's visualized. Your perception's your brain thinks of it as the same thing. So I say do it for as long as you possibly can. But if you put this violet thing around you, you eventually are going to start feeling the stimulation along the energetic body and the physical body, you know, if you do it for long periods of time. So even in that 5 minutes that I talked about earlier, do that as a protection, and it's going to start filtering out any frequency that is not at the vibration that your mental frequency is projecting. And it's very important because the more control we have over our mind, the more you are going to be able to, dream better, yes, perform psychically better, even perform your normal work better, etc. But in the changing times, we're going to have these things that if people can't do this, then they're going to be kind of left behind. So it's even the minor details of being, moderately aware. It's a good thing to start doing, for sure. I don't mean that in a very scary way by any means. It's just, we're all psychic and we all can light the match, basically.
I really want to stay on the topic for today, but people do have some like interesting questions. I think a lot of the stuff people are asking about, we talked about earlier in today's show when I was talking about like God and the cosmic mind and how humans keep putting things in categories without looking at what the people are actually doing with their actions. So like it's a very complicated issue. Obviously, I do believe in those things, but I think that humans like to put on a mask of being godly or holy and do terrible things to children and each other and the environment. And so it's like a very complicated issue. But like obviously, I do believe in those things. I just think that what other people might think of as evil is actually what's good, and what people think is good is what's evil. And I kind of like went on a whole tangent about that earlier in the show. So definitely like go back and like re-listen to that, and I think it'll help you understand. But we're trying to look at things from their energetic value beyond religion, because as we know, as citizens of the world, there are many different religions in the world, and that doesn't make one person better than another person. So we have to look at like, and also the other facet of that is a lot of people are forced into religions by their families and their culture. So they don't really like have a choice of finding things for themselves. So you have to look at like what people are actually doing with their life. Are they living in a way that is helping or being fucked up? And that's the way to look at it. But like obviously we're very interested in the healing of the world and all of that kind of stuff, for sure.
Because I don't know, even with my books and stuff, I always say like, even past like the semi-religious undertone to it, it's not connected to any religion. Like you can take the names of the things that I'm calling like Chris consciousness, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it the plant Mamba. It doesn't matter as long as that energy and that connection's still there. That's the problem, especially after the allegorical story of like the Tower of Babel, where, think about it, the Babel, like we all started forming languages, and at one point in our history, we were all humans were telepathic. We didn't need to speak. We all knew how to express and connect that way. So there was no debate about the one thing. There was no debate about the one thing. But then we finally started talking, the different names, the different ways, doing all this kind of stuff. It became this ideology of naming and categorizing and doing this with language. I felt like really has destroyed things, because you should be able to read the Quran, the Bible, the Vedas, the Torah. You should be able to read all of it, take away the character stuff, and find the same message. It's all there. But then there's man and their little stories and adventures thrown into it, and their mystical ideologies of it thrown into it.
And there's also some really fucked up stuff in those things too. And so that's the thing.
Like stuff that you're like, what? Yeah, like what the fuck? That's man's doing.
Yeah.
Don't pinpoint that at God or even a type of people. That's man's doing. If somebody's reading that text saying, I'm gonna go do that, that's their choice. That's free will, and that's horseshit on them. But it's like there's still the base message between them. It's bad. Sorry.
Yeah, most of my spiritual practice is related to left-hand path Hinduism, because I've been training to be a yoga teacher for like the past year. So I'm very interested in Vedic studies and healing my prana.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thank you, Vampire Love. I'm happy that you've also made it to the live. Yeah, spirits use technology.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they can and do. You know, I mean, even the jinn, they have their own worlds and their own technologies, their own religions, and it's the same thing as like the asuras and the devas, and you know, they're different. That everybody can call them different. I call them ETs. You can call them aliens. You can call them ultra terrestrials. Whatever you want to call them. The things exist, and what are they doing that we're not doing? And that's really where we should be learning from as human beings.
Why do people think witchcraft is evil? Because some people use it for evil things.
The same way a bully
and
wants
ruin
to
it for everyone else.
Yeah, the same way a bully, you grew up in school and a bully's trying to pick on you. It's no different. It's just they think they can exert their will on you. And it's even outside of magic. This is just how energy works. Whether you believe in magic or not, this is happening.
I mean, I think there's a lot I could say about that, but science was once considered to be witchcraft.
Yeah.
So that's the thing here. We're bridging these things together. So once you realize this is what we're doing is science, it kind of changes your perception of everything.
Yeah. Esoteric science. Yeah. And you can pretty much use it for whatever you want with it, really. You know, and it's like you reap what you sow. You know, whether you believe in magic or not, it's still in play. That's the funny part of it, is like whether you believe it or not, it's still in play.
Yeah, and I mean, like, people are doing quote unquote witchcraft in all religious ceremonies. That's what that is. So like people they just, it's just like a weird definement of things.
Eat the little cake and the wine, and you're performing a ritual. You know, especially on the same day, same time. Like it's ritual, and the occultism is it's not even the fact that it's hidden. Like, we are spiritual beings, and all the religions exponentially gain control by having control over somebody's spirit and soul, while the government has control over the people's minds. And so you have these two things that are separate. One can be looked at as the left side, and one can be looked at as the right side, even if we want to put it in those terms. And one's religion and one's government. One's controlling the soul, one's controlling the mind, and got to have to revert it back to be able to control your own mind. So nothing's controlling your soul, because most religions are just, you know, spiritual mind control in the end. Like, oh, if I do that, I'm going to go to hell. If I don't do
also, people will often act like they don't like something because they know they're actually doing that thing and don't want people to know. I'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that's true though. Yes, I mean, as a true witches are simply connecting to nature and creation. They're seeking knowledge to harmonize. Yes, and I have a pretty good Islamic study background, and there's a thing like different between Seher, like the black magic, and another side of it called like Hikmah, or the study of knowledge, or the seeking of gnosis, and seeking that connection to that whatever that thing is. And we can call it God, we can call it whatever you want, but that Hikmah aspect of it is that knowledge and that connection to the gnosis, rather than the over accentuation of your will, if you will. No pun intended. And we live in a cyber world, and Wisdom Applied says now we have cyber witches. Yeah, I mean, interface with the psychic domain with your technology. I personally love computers. I have a very good computer setup, and it's very elaborate with a lot of studio gear and stuff. And I think I've never been one of those people that have been scared of technology. Like, even when you're talking about 5G, I'm not scared of 5G. I understand what it could and can be used for, and what it has been used for, but either way, it's been here forever. The military had access to it before we even did, so it's still in the air. We have to look at technology as a friend and not use it as a form of negative connotation to it, which it can be used for. Even the UFOs and UAPs and the old Brahmanas that were found in the Sanskrit world, they had massive weapons attached to some of them. So just because it was really advanced technology doesn't mean that some of them didn't have weapons attached to them. was applied. I'm grateful to live at this point in history. Yeah, me too. Think we both are. So
I am.
do you want me to move the
off
cat so you
side.
can sit down?
I would love
Okay.
to sit down.
Okay. Reaver says most animals are telepathic, if not all of them. Yeah, because they understand frequency. You know what I mean? Like if anybody has a dog right now, go up to them and say, like, it sounds horrible. Go say the meanest thing you want to them, but say it in the nicest frequency tone of voice and all happy. They're gonna get very happy. They don't know what you're saying to them. It's the tone, it's the energy that you do it. And that's how they communicate. So it's that frequency of response and the energy that you're giving off to them. Another experiments that I've done with my dog before is he's laying a long period of time, like away from me, like, a good amount, and enter a state of meditation and connect to your animal energetically, like feel yourself go over there and start petting them and like coaxing them over to you, being like, hey, come on, boy, come here. Now, I guarantee you, after about 5-10 minutes of doing that in meditation, your dog's gonna be like, what's going on? I feel like I gotta go over there. And I guarantee you they'll come.
Yeah, like when I was doing Purna Svara Mudra and Faustina came and laid her nose like where my fingers were meeting in my mudra. It was so cute. I like telling our dog that he's beautiful.
Yeah, no, we're not mean.
We're
to
not
our
mean
dog.
to
No,
our
no.
dog.
But I'm just saying, like, you can. I'm using that as an example.
Don't be mean to animals.
Don't be mean.
Don't be mean to animals. We are not telling you to do that. Be kind and help animals as much as you can.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm using that as an example of the frequency of something. Like take for example, like my dog had an accident on the floor, and I'm like, "Oh, did you poop on the floor? Did you shit on the floor? Were you a bad boy?" I was doing it in a nice voice, and he was happy. Even though I was saying, "Oh, you were bad," he was still happy about it. It's the tone. It's not what you're. It's not your. It's your energy, and that's why animals know people's energy better than most humans know other people's energy. It's wild.
Yeah.
Dogs have a very keen sense on how people are.
Absolutely. And so, where are some places that people could learn more about psionics?
Other than doing the research and stuff like that on the good old Googles and search engines, though I do have a new book coming out from the Gateway Publications. That is, I feel, very groundbreaking in psionics and like mental control over the weather, and it's based on the Hindu philosophies of mantras and utterances and vibrations, and how his experiences were able to control weather patterns and either bring or dispel rain or disperse clouds and have all these psionic ability with these things. And it's called My Experiments with Rain, and that's going to be, I feel, a pivotal study.
Yeah, by Sri Kupajanandana.
Yes, it's phenomenal.
I'm so excited. I love his work. Very, very amazing person.
It's really groundbreaking, and I'm not just saying that because we get the pleasure of publishing it. It's really groundbreaking work. It is.
That's going to come out when?
Hopefully at the end of February, if everything goes as planned.
That'll be great.
United Virtue says, I think people were telepathic before the Tower of Babel. Yes, what we talked about earlier. And it was the Tower of Babel that we split the tongues. The serpent split the tongues. And we were basically all trying to talk about the one thing, but now we just had the discrepancy of what that one thing was. Is it Allah? Is it God? Is it Jesus? Is it this? Is it that? Is it Satan? Is it this? It's just like, well, there's something, and there's some things. And I always say I have a very monotheistic view, but through a polytheistic universe, because there's the big G and the little G's, that makes sense, at least in my mind. Primeval says, so psionic means your ability to control spirit. No, psionic does not mean ability to control spirit. It's really more about how to be able to control your own energy field and mind and interface it with like technology, like how could telepathy be done through technology means rather than just psychic means, and how that kind of interfaces.
And how you can use your psychic abilities to connect into technology.
Yes. Yeah. Even the UAPs that we see forming in various skies everywhere.
I think a good example of this is like, what's that show? Stranger Things, where they have that program where that girl is in it, and they
The
have
one
her in
where it's
that
just like,
technology
yeah,
where
it's
she
just
goes
like
into the
MK Ultra.
upside
Yeah,
down.
that's Stranger Things. Yeah, and that's I
Mhm.
remember when that came out, everyone was like, "This is MK Ultra. They're showing MK Ultra," and yeah, they sure are. Tell you about it somehow. You know, very very intense truths in that movie or show. I guess it's a show. Yeah, Wisdom Applied says our brain can attach to robotic hands and move it. 100%. This is happening in prosthetics, where these prosthetics are just connecting to your neural network. This is not crazy technology. It's really not. And you know, so the more we see this come out and these technologies interface more and more, the reality of ETs and non-human intelligence that don't look like your normal humans, but they may look like a complete different type of makeup, are going to be very normal. You know, very very normal. Ursula says, you mean Montauk Project or Looking Glass or Stargate? All three, realistically. You know, I feel actually that you bring those three up. I feel that there's a triangulation or an energetic connection through various remote viewings that I've done between the Montauk Project, Looking Glass, and Stargate. By the way, I feel they're all the smaller projects within the larger umbrella.
Yeah.
It's actually almost scarier. It's not just separate things. It's like, and then, it's the same thing with the Montauk, the project MK Often also. That's going to be tied to those ones. Dermatologist says, doesn't matter what we call it. There's always something constantly creating everything. Yep, always creating it and destroying it at the same time.
Yeah,
Shiva. Shiva.
There's all kinds of what I guess people call conspiracies about governments summoning entities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got the pleasure to talk to somebody a long time ago that worked in a project that did that, and I can share that. I can't share a lot with it, but one of the things that they were doing was they were like summoning entities in like a room, like it would be this room, but they had a lot of electrical reading equipment and EMF reading equipment and various cameras to be able to capture the phenomenon on tape. And they would ask the entity, be like, hey, take that book and move it across. And it would have video of the book moving across the room, but being able to read the electromagnetic field to then be able to reverse engineer that effect into technology. So all this information, are humans smart and very innovative? Yes, but sometimes there's other things that are leading the innovations.
Yeah. Oh, there's a great dialogue in the chat about, is art psychic technology? Art can be a vehicle of psychic technology. Like, for example, the paintings that I do of aliens and stuff like that, where they're giving me visions and telling me, show people this. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It can be, for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, and a lot of artists, we see these things in our head and we're like, we just need to get them out. That's how I personally am. That's why it's like I don't sit down and just do art, but one day I was like, look, I drew this. And it's like there's sometimes I just see something in my head so much that you have to just get it out. Like it's such a strong psychic impression that I'm like, okay, you need to be here, so I don't got to look at you here anymore.
Yeah. Takes is asking, how can symbols give the same impression to multiple individuals?
I don't think all can. I think a specific ones can. And I think the easier the symbols and the not so convoluted form of sigils that people are using, but the easier forms, they're going to have an easier and more quick hit to actually the subconscious and what hyperspace and our superconscious is connected to.
Especially the color of the symbol, for example.
Yeah, the tone that might come with it, because sometimes I'll see a symbol in my head just randomly through the day, I'll hear like in my head, and then okay, it's got this weird tone to it. Okay, I don't let it change my day. You have to come brush my teeth.
Everything is about how you are training yourself to remain in control over your mind and thus your life. And this is what we help teach people with. So before we go, if you do want direct help from us, please check out the links to our websites below. Vermilion's website is thevioletgateway.com. You can find links to our occult meditation video course and the protection rug that we designed together. in the description of this video, as well as the links if you want any psychic work done by me and my classes as well. So all that stuff is linked below as a resource for you. If you do want help from us or check out all of our different classes, we are live every week on Thursdays around this time. And then there's also another upload on the channel every week on Tuesdays. So please make sure you're keeping up with all the updates. And we're so close to 30,000 subscribers. Thank you all so, so much. Please share the videos with everyone you know to help the channel grow and hit like to help us with the algorithm.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's have a
All right.
moment for him. He says goodbye. And
Glad to see
I hope
you.
you all take care. Please hit subscribe if you're new and hit like once again. Thanks so much to all the channel members and to the patrons. You're all amazing. Thank you for your support. You guys are so amazing. Like our patrons. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
We look
Thank
forward to
you.
these days too.
Absolutely. And we'll see you all
See you later.
next time. Bye.
Bye.